Hello everyone, how are you doing? Well, in this lesson we are going to see regular verbs in the past, in the two versions of the past that we most use. In another video we saw the present, what you call the simple present, for RRE endings. And in that video I used the verb trabajar for the first case, that means to work. Today I chose another verb because it follows the same model, so the endings will be the same and the root, as it's regular, will keep being the same too. In this case I chose the verb preguntar, that means to ask a question, to ask. Well, in the present, let's see if you remember the endings. So the root is all the word just before the typical ending. So in this case, pregunt. As you can see, I haven't conjugated the verb in the two most common pasts yet. But as you may see, the root, as it's regular, is always pregunt. If you remember, let's review it quickly. Pregunto, preguntas, él, ella pregunta, nosotros preguntamos, vosotros, vosotras preguntáis, ustedes preguntan, ellos, ellas preguntan. Let's see what happens in what you call the simple past, and we call it pretérito perfecto simple, when we want to talk about an action that took place in the past and finished in the past. Yo pregunté, tú preguntaste, you keep the as and add te. Tú preguntaste, él preguntó. Nosotros preguntamos. It happens with regular verbs. You can see that the conjugation is the same in this past and in the present. Preguntamos ayer, we asked a question yesterday. Preguntamos ahora, we are asking questions now. It's the same. As for grammar, of course, not as for meaning. Vosotros preguntasteis. Sorry, the accent doesn't go here. Preguntasteis. Ustedes preguntaron. Ellos, ellas preguntaron. Remember that these always coincide. And we have another version of the past to indicate that an action, to indicate a repetitive action in the past, or an action about which we don't say when it ended. That's why it's called pretérito imperfecto. It may have not ended yet, we don't know. For those specific cases, in these cases, I mean, it's the same as your simple past. You say when the action happened. This is a tense that coincides with the way in which you express actions, repetitive actions in the past, with your used to. I used to play tennis when I was a child. He used to come visit me when he was younger, etc. Or for example, they would ask and ask and ask and never get answers. Well, this form in the past is what you express that way. Let's see their endings. Yo preguntaba, so it means I kept asking and asking and asking. When I was a child, I used to ask my teacher about how to conjugate verbs many times. Preguntaba. It's repetitive. Tú preguntabas, él, ella preguntaba, nosotros preguntábamos, vosotros, vosotras preguntabais, ustedes preguntaban, and ellos, ellas preguntaban. It's not that hard if you take into account that, as I told you in the other lesson, for our ending, this is always here. This is here and this is here. The final N is always in the conjugation. Let's see here. Well, for the first person, it's peculiar. But the second person, both here and with S, in this case, well, we have to see tense by tense. Let's see how the model is, how it works for the second ending, the er ending. Now let's see the verb that is associated with the one that we've just seen, so that you learn them more easily. We saw to ask, preguntar, now we'll see to answer, responder. It follows the second model. If you remember in the present, respondo, respondes, responde, respondemos, respondéis, responden, responden. Yo respondí, tú respondiste, él respondió. Nosotros respondimos, vosotros, vosotras respondisteis, ustedes respondieron, ellos, ellas respondieron. So this is, I answered to your letter yesterday. Respondí a tu carta ayer. When I was a child, my teacher would answer every question that I asked her. Cuando era niño, mi maestra respondía cada pregunta que yo le hacía. Yo respondía, ella respondía. So these two coincide, luckily. Yo respondía, tú respondías, él respondía. Nosotros respondíamos, vosotros respondíais, ustedes respondían, and ellos, ellas respondían. Again, it's not that hard because there are some, because there are some common or some letters that remain throughout the conjugation. Well, for example, these two are exactly the same. As we saw in the other cases, well, here we have e, I, a, but the most typical of the third person in the plural is here. The second in the plural in Spain is always es, ais, or is. The N here. The S here, remember. And as you can see, for both the er and ir ending, we don't have the letter B anymore. For the first model, we do always. Trabajaba, preguntaba, amaba. But here we don't. But on the other hand, you can see something very easy to remember, that ia, this sequence ia, is throughout the conjugation in this case. to indicate, I repeat, repetitive actions in the past or actions about which we don't say when they finished. Let's see the final model. Well, now let's see the final model, the ir ending. In the other verbs that we've just seen, I hadn't written the pronouns because, as I told you many times, we rarely use them. But, well, okay, I decided to put them here. If you remember, yo vivo, tú vives, él vive, because we saw this verb. Nosotros vivimos, vosotras vivís, ustedes viven, ellos viven. If you remember, for the second person in the plural in Spain, we don't have a diphthong here, as we did for the RR ending, but just a vowel, the vowel I and the letter S. Let's see the pretérito perfecto simple. Yo viví en Londres el año pasado. I lived in London last year. Just an example. Tú viviste. Él vivió. He lived in Rome 10 years ago. Nosotros vivimos. Vosotras vivisteis. Ustedes vivieron. Ellos, ellas vivieron en la casa de al lado hasta el año pasado. They lived next door till last year. Then they moved to another place. Let's see el pretérito. Yo vivía, él, ella vivía. It's the same as in the ending. Tú vivías. Well, all the conjugation, luckily, is the same for the and ir ending for this tense. Nosotros vivíamos. Vosotras vivíais. Ustedes vivían. In this case, we do have to put the accent. And ellos, ellas vivían. We had, with the ending, respondía, respondíamos. Respondíais, respondían, so it coincides, so both and ir ending in this tense are exactly the same. You keep the root of the verb and then you add these endings. And as you can notice here, as you can see, again, as in the first conjugation, the present tense and the simple past coincide, are exactly the same word. Nosotros vivimos actualmente en Argentina. Currently, we are living in. Currently, we live in Argentina, or we are living in Argentina in the present time. And in the past, we lived in Japan for 5 years. Let's see some examples and let's see if you can fill in the gaps that I left on purpose, because they contain the information we've just seen. ¿Dónde tu mamá cuando era chica? Cuando means when. She was, when she was. Era is the past of ser, to be. When she was a child. So, what do you think this means, the whole question? Where, tu mamá cuando era, ¿dónde tu mamá cuando era chica? Where did your mother used to live when she was a child? according to what we've just seen, what do you think that we should put here? ¿Dónde vivía? Because it's a repetitive action in the past. So it means, I repeat, where did your mother used to live when she was a little child? And let's say that the verb, the other person says, vivía en Brasil. She used to live in Brazil. As you can see here in Spanish, it's not necessary to put, well, we rarely put pronouns. It's not, where did your mother live when? And we don't say cuando ella era chica. It's not necessary at all. It's implied. I know that in English you have to repeat the pronoun. Where did your mother live when she was a child? You have to put the subject pronoun. In Spanish it's not necessary, and we seldom do it. Tú, let's use tú. Tú. Tú nunca, and the same verb, vivir, in Argentina. We want to express that you never lived in Argentina. So that the aspect is perfect. Nunca viviste. So now we don't use pretérito imperfecto, but pretérito perfecto simple. This is the difference. Well, you do, you make the question, the answer, sorry, or the sentence in the same way. We use to when it's something that we would do again and again and again in the past, and for a specific action, you use the simple past, sorry. So it's the same in Spanish. Nunca viviste. No, nunca vivías. We don't say nunca vivías. Nunca viviste en Argentina. You never lived in Argentina. Su maestra nunca las preguntas de sus alumnos. His or her or their teacher, because our su means his, her, your, when we are talking to someone by using the usted pronoun. Su, their, let's suppose here that it means there. Su maestra nunca las preguntas de sus alumnos. In this case, although we have the adverb nunca, never, the meaning changes. Why does it change? Because it changes because we want to communicate a repetitive action that either always took place or that would never take place. In this case, she didn't used to do a specific thing. We say the adverb nunca here too. Su maestra nunca respondía because it's a repetitive action. Nunca respondió. We would use nunca respondió, your simple past, if we want to know about a specific question. But in general, whenever each student or each pupil asked her a question, she would never answer them. That's the meaning of this sentence. And that's why we use respondía. And let's see a final example. Yo siempre te... Here let's use the verb preguntar. And here, responder. Yo siempre te, preguntar, conjugated of course, y tú nunca me responder. As we say siempre and nunca, it is a repetitive action in the past. I would always ask you a question and you would never answer me any of them. This is the meaning. Yo siempre te preguntaba, repetitive action, so pretérito imperfecto. And here pretérito imperfecto too. Y tú nunca me respondías. Like that. Other lessons we'll see, especially because there are very, very important verbs, irregular verbs that we use a lot, the same as you in English or in other languages. The verb hacer, to do or to make, the verb dar, to give, decir, to say or to tell, and many other verbs that are important and that are very, very common in our language. But for now, let's leave it here because you have the conjugations, you already have the conjugations for the three models in the present tense, in what you call the simple past, pretérito perfecto simple, and we have, I repeat, a specific tense to express the same that you do when you say, I used to blah blah blah, or I would ask this again and again and again. This is pretérito imperfecto. So in our next video, I'll conjugate some irregular verbs so that you know them. I'll give you examples with them, and we are going to see the demonstrative pronouns too, and the verb there is, there are. Let's see how we express that in Spanish. Well, people, I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, please give it a like. Try to share and subscribe to my channel so that you see the other videos. And I really hope that you have a nice weekend. See you in the next video. Bye bye.